The county clerk squints at me like I'm returning a blender to Costco without a receipt. Sir, you understand that by refusing to sign your... I raise my hand, palm out, like a small-town lawyer who learned courtroom etiquette from binge-watching legal dramas at 2 a.m. I understand perfectly, I say, voice steady, even though my ribs feel like a cracked ice tray. I'm refusing to sign. Behind me, the elevator dings and releases a cloud of perfume and whispers. Our town gossips travel in packs, part PTA, part HOA, part surveillance state with casserole privileges, and today they've all decided to witness the day I say no to the baby my cheating wife swears is ours if we choose it. The clerk sighs, slides the unsigned birth certificate back like it might blow up, and I swear the fluorescent lights flicker as if the building itself is bracing for impact. This is how it ends, I think, not with a bang, but with the soft, papery thud of bureaucracy and a man who finally learned the difference between family and infidelity. Is this revenge? My soon-to-be ex whispers from the bench, eyes wide, mascara immaculate, like she's starring in a prestige cable drama about toxic love in the suburbs. My brain flashes a montage of out-of-order scenes because that's how memory works when betrayal detonates. It plays you a highlight reel with the timeline scrambled, a cheap thriller with expensive feelings. I see the night of the baby shower she insisted on calling a sprinkle with pastel cupcakes and that smug neighbor who brought artisanal pickles and placed his hand on her back in the kitchen for exactly 8 seconds longer than a human hand should linger on a woman who is not his. I see the Allen wrench from the IKEA crib she scheduled me to assemble 2 weeks before I even knew there was a timeline to question. I see the full moon over our postage stamp backyard and the glow of her screen at 3:17 a.m., the same time every night, like the affair had office hours and a calendar invite. And then I'm back in the county building, where the clerk has decided to speak to me like a guidance counselor who's seen this episode before. Not signing does not erase the situation, she says, and the situation echoes like a shout in a gym. The truth is, I didn't wake up planning to be the villain in a parable about cold hearts. I woke up the way I always do, to the smell of coffee I made the night before on a timer, to the dog snoring like a freight train under my side of the bed, to the quiet knowledge that loyalty is a simple thing until someone decides it isn't. My cheating wife, there, I said it, because cutting around the word like it might stain the furniture doesn't make it less true, has an answer for everything. Love isn't biology, she told me last week at Applebee's, where the air smells like hot fryers and compromise. Love is choice. She delivered that line with a level of confidence I usually reserve for declaring that Costco rotisserie chicken is the best $4.99 in America. And for a blink, I wanted to believe, because believing is what family trains you to do. It's the muscle memory of marriage. But belief without truth is stage makeup. It looks good under soft lighting and fails under noon. Sir, if you'd like to consult counsel. The clerk tries again, and I let myself imagine a calm lawyer with a tidy briefcase, sitting with me under a Target fluorescent, explaining paternity statutes in a tone usually reserved for bread recipes. I'd love a recipe for this. I'd love measurements and bake times and a photo of what done looks like. I'd love someone to confirm that refusing to sign the birth certificate is not cruelty, but clarity. But there is no recipe, only a sequence of moments that finally stack into a conviction I can live with. I think of the word betrayal and how it sounds like a door slamming in a hallway you're still standing in. I think of cheating and how it's not just the body, but the story, the rewriting of timelines, the gaslighting of calendars, the way an office happy hour morphs into a midnight Uber that doesn't match the receipts. I think of infidelity as vandalism. You spray paint over the mural we spent years painting, and then you tell me if I squint, it looks like a sunset. "Don't be dramatic," she hisses, a whisper yell only American suburban couples have perfected, and I almost laugh because parody has been circling my life for months, and now it's landed on the counter, demanding attention. Dramatic would be what our HOA president did when someone installed a purple mailbox. He formed a committee and called a vote, and wrote a 6-page PDF about neighborhood aesthetics. Dramatic is what my wife, my ex, my was, did when she staged a photo shoot of our gender-neutral nursery and captioned it, "Chosen family is real family," a post that racked up heart emojis from people who have never read a custody agreement. This, what I'm doing, feels like the opposite of drama. It feels like refusing to participate in a lie just because the lie comes with soft blankets and hospital bracelets and a pen that everyone expects me to use. I won't sign, I say again, softer now, and I am suddenly aware that my voice, this American man voice that orders takeout and mows lawns and pays taxes and says please and thank you, is shaking. It would be easier, God, so much easier, to absorb the blow and call it grace. To sign, to say love wins, to let the town label me the bigger man. And for a second I picture the easy credits, me pushing a stroller on a Sunday morning, picking up Starbucks and waving at the neighbor who knows too much, pretending the math checks out and time is a circle and not a line. But the conspiracy no one talks about is how much pressure there is on a man to put the word family above the word truth, to call himself strong because he can carry a secret that keeps crushing his lungs. We dress it up with buzzwords like co-parenting and blended and modern love, and those can be beautiful things when they are honest. When they aren't, they are a second betrayal layered on the first, a toxically sweet coat of paint on rotting wood. So I don't sign. I turn from the counter, and the peanut gallery falls silent the way church hushes when the organ stops. My cheating wife looks at me like she can't recognize my face without the old loyalty draped over it. Maybe that's my first act of revenge. Not rage, not yelling, not making a scene in the county building, but taking back my name from a story I didn't write. I walk to the door, and it opens with a soft hydraulic sigh, like even the building is relieved by a clean decision, and a gust of August heat hits me in the face, honest as a slap. Outside, somebody's Tacoma rumbles past with a faded flag and a bumper sticker about Little League. And for a second, I feel almost normal, almost like a man running Saturday errands. I stand there, letting the sun bake the fluorescent light out of my skin, and think, this is the beginning, even though it looks like an ending. The paperwork can wait. The DNA paper, the divorce paper, the custody paper. Paper has had its say. Now it's my turn. Rewind, if you can call it that, when the film has been chewed by the projector and re-spooled by a raccoon. Go back to when our life looked like an advertisement for mid-tier happiness. A 3-bedroom with an anxious dog, a lawn that grew in patchy like a beard, dual incomes, and the smug certainty that comes from having opinions about grocery store salsa. We had a rhythm. Costco on Sundays, trash out on Tuesdays. Thursday night, date nights that were really Netflix, and an argument about the thermostat conducted in whispers because the drywall is thin and privacy is a myth. Somewhere between we're a team and why are you always on your phone after midnight, the edges frayed. She joined a book club that mostly drank wine, and I joined a bowling league that mostly ate nachos, and that should have been fine. But then the late-night texts started arriving like tiny meteors, and the screen glow on her cheekbones felt like a stage light on a secret. You know how in every American suburb there's always a guy who seems like an extra in your marriage? Ours was a man named Weston, which is a name that sounds like a mortgage, and he had a Tesla he talked about like it was his graduate thesis. Weston was our HOA president, because of course he was, and he had a handshake that felt like a job interview. He and my wife bonded over sustainability, which in practice looked like him showing her apps that turned the living room lamps off from the driveway. One night, during a block party where someone brought a smoked brisket so transcendent it made the Baptists raise their hands, I noticed Weston and my wife discussing the fence setback rules with the kind of intensity usually reserved for hostage negotiations. His laugh landed on her shoulder like confetti. He said we, and she didn't correct him. And still I told myself stories. She's just friendly. He's just shiny. We're just tired. The American dream is nothing if not denial with a white picket fence. Then the tiny incidents piled like receipts from a road trip you can't afford. I found a second toothbrush in the downstairs half bath, the kind of sleek charcoal thing influencers recommend, and she said she needed a downstairs option, like dental hygiene was a scavenger hunt. There was a receipt from a restaurant we don't go to, signed with a flourish that wasn't her handwriting. There was a scent on her hoodie that was not our detergent. There was the dog refusing to sleep at the foot of our bed on Thursdays. I started doing math that felt like a conspiracy corkboard. Dates circled, string connecting her book club to Weston's HOA emergency meetings. A pattern emerging like a magic eye poster, only visible if you don't blink. I ordered a 23andMe kit because that's what Americans do when we doubt. We spit into tubes and wait for a website to tell us if our grandpa was from County Cork or if we might be related to the neighbor we hate. The night she told me she was pregnant, she timed it like a Super Bowl ad. During halftime, when I couldn't hear my own thoughts over glitzy commercials that think a pickup truck can mend a country. She sat next to me on the couch, eyes shining, and my brain did a bizarre double exposure. Joy layered over dread, family layered over infidelity, love layered over a ledger. I hugged her. I'm not a monster. And yet somewhere in that embrace, a small, cockroach, stubborn voice whispered, the calendar doesn't add up. The last month had been a crowded hallway of excuses, late sessions, unexpected deadlines, a weekend women's retreat at a lake house where we do not know the owner, but Weston certainly does. The timing felt like a missed exit on a highway you've driven your whole life. I Googled prenatal paternity test on my phone, like a man searching for absolution in a customer review. It read more like a spy novel than medicine. Discreet kits, shipping labels, chain of custody, non-invasive like ever anything about this was gentle. The test became my secret mission. I felt ridiculous and righteous all at once, like a guy in a movie wearing a ball cap and sunglasses trying to look like not him. My wife floated through those weeks like a lifestyle vlog. Smoothies, leggings, curated joy. We're blessed, she said, and my heart, which is not a genius but not an idiot, clenched like a fist. I told myself that infidelity makes you paranoid, that paranoia makes you cruel. That cruelty would make me the villain. But betrayal is a master of projection. It makes you blame the mirror for the cracks in the glass. The reveal came at a gender party I did not want, but could not stop. We stood in a backyard decorated like a Target aisle exploded, balloons, bunting, a chalkboard sign that read, "Oh baby," in a font designed by a millennial with perfect cuticles. Someone handed me a baseball filled with colored powder, and I was supposed to throw it at a board like America could be healed by sports and confetti. When it burst, the crowd cheered, and Weston hugged me too long. He whispered, "Brother," into my ear, and the word felt like a borrowed sweater that still smelled like his cologne. My wife cried pretty tears. I smiled for photos. Later that night, she fell asleep with a hand on her stomach, and I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling fan, counting revolutions like they could spin the doubt out of me. I promised myself if the test proved what my bones already knew, I'd do the un-American thing. Stop pretending. Here's the thing about conspiracy theories. They thrive in the spaces where truth won't go. So I dragged truth out into the daylight. I sent the kits. I tracked the package like it was an organ transplant. Every refresh of the FedEx app felt like a choice to be a man who lives in reality, even if the air there hurts. The results came back the day the nursery wallpaper arrived. Small foxes wearing little scarves, woodland creatures who have never lied to anyone. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. It looked clinical, bloodless, but the body doesn't read in percentages. It reads in earthquakes. I sat at the kitchen table while the dog laid his head on my knee like he knew the floor had shifted. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just breathed. And in that breath, I understood why people join cults or buy expensive juicers or sign papers they shouldn't. Certainty is a drug, and abstaining from it feels like detox. So, when I tell you I refuse to sign, understand this wasn't a plot twist I invented to look brave. It was the endpoint of 1,000 small choices to stop being the only honest thing in a dishonest house. The cheating wife I loved had built a story where my forgiveness was the final decorative pillow, the accent that pulled the room together. I stood up, finally, and said, I am not furniture. I am a person. And people get to choose what story holds their name. Fast forward to the hospital, where time gets weird and everything smells like lemon and courage. Labor is a wild thing. Even when the circumstances are a mess, the body insists on doing what the body does, and you can't help but feel awe, even as you're drowning. Nurses moved like pit crews with empathy. Machines hummed. I held a cup of ice chips like it was a sacrament. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was trying to keep a promise to myself, to be gentle with the innocent and firm with the guilty. When the baby cried, the sound ripped straight through me. I cried too, because I'm human and not immune to miracles. The nurse asked if I wanted to cut the cord, and I said no softly, like a man telling the truth at last. My wife looked at me with an expression I had no word for, a mix of triumph, panic, and the theater of redemption. Later, when the room was calmer and the baby burritoed and sleeping, the paperwork appeared, thick as a menu at Cheesecake Factory. This is standard, the nurse said, and the pen looked so simple in her hand. I read the line twice. Father, legal, name. It wasn't science. We'd done that dance already. This was a declaration, a spell. Say it, sign it, and it becomes real. We're a family, my wife murmured, eyes damp, voice pitched to the register that always used to pull me back from the ledge. It hit me that we were, in fact, a family, just not the one she was asking me to underwrite. Family is the people you tell the truth to, especially when it ruins the evening. Family is the friend who came over with tacos when he saw me sitting in the truck in our driveway at midnight, staring at the steering wheel like it might offer advice. Family is the bowling league buddy who got me an emergency consult with his sister, a lawyer who talks like a buzzsaw and explained in clear, almost tender terms that signatures are forever, and forever is too long to live inside a lie. The hospital social worker, professional and kind, explained options with the clinical compassion of someone who has seen every shape of human mess. You're allowed to take your time, she said. You're also allowed to decline. My wife's mother texted me paragraphs about stepping up. Weston sent an email, because of course he did, CCing my wife like we were all colleagues in a project called The Rest of Your Life, apologizing for the pain of this transition while not actually admitting he was the reason we needed a transition in the first place. The gall could have powered a small city. I set my phone face down and stared at the ceiling tiles until my own name felt like a foreign word that might not mean what I thought it did. We tried to talk without fighting and failed. Toxic love has a choreography. Step 1, apology. Step 2, justification. Step 3, accusation. Step 4, a grand gesture that tries to erase steps 1 through 3. You never wanted children like I did, she said. Not true. I wanted the kind of children made inside a story that didn't require me to erase myself. You care more about revenge than about love, she added. Also not true. My revenge was refusing to act like love is strong enough to hold everything, including active deception. Real love draws a border and guards it with a lawn chair and sunscreen and a whistle, because boundaries are how adults do kindness. "We can heal," she said, "and I believe in healing. I do, but healing works best on wounds you didn't slice open yourself in the kitchen and call art." So I told her the only thing that worked like a compass for me: I am not this child's father. I will not sign a document that tells the state otherwise. I will feed him, rock him, help you if you need help, protect him from the drafty windows and the winter, because babies are blameless. But I will not become the teddy bear for an adult's comfort. She said I was cruel. Weston texted something about shared responsibility, and I understood for the first time why people go on Reddit to scream into the void. The void understands clarity. After discharge, the lawyers came like thunderstorms. Her attorney called mine a hardliner, which made me sound like I wore mirrored sunglasses and had a buzz cut. My attorney said words like estoppel and presumption of paternity, and I nodded like I was tracking even as my soul was in a diner drinking black coffee and staring into the middle distance. Friends picked sides. Mutuals went ghost. The HOA sent out a neutral statement about respecting neighbors' privacy, which was a hilarious sentence to read in a neighborhood where people measure each other's grass with rulers. Through it all, the baby yawned, and time did its stubborn thing. I dropped off a casserole because I'm from the Midwest, and that's what we do when everything is broken. We bake the most soothing food we know and hope cheese can shore up a crumbling foundation. There was a mediation session where the air smelled like old carpet and compromise, and a mediator with kind eyes told us about creative solutions, a phrase that in this context sounded like invent a universe where 2 + 2 = 5. I listened. I considered. I pictured a future where I was the legal dad and Weston was the uncle who attended every school event and smiled like a man who got everything he wanted by calling it community. I pictured my own face in mirrors I'd never trust again. I pictured teaching a boy to throw a baseball, and knowing every toss was also a question I couldn't answer. And I said quietly, as if hanging a picture on a new nail, no. In the end, the notarized truth was as unsentimental as gravity. The DNA results slid across the table. The statutes did what statutes do when someone refuses to let shame make the rules. I slept for the first time in months, like a person. The baby slept in a different house, safe, small, loved by the woman who had made the choices she made. I woke to a quiet kitchen and the smell of coffee, and a dog who wagged like the world wasn't ending. Outside, the paper lay in the dew, and the headlines were about other people's disasters, which felt merciful. I stood there barefoot, reading about markets and weather and a celebrity divorce that would dominate brunch conversations, and I thought, sometimes revenge is just telling the truth and surviving the echo. You expect the credits to roll after a decision like that. You imagine a montage where I hit the gym, buy a better truck, learn to make sourdough, download an app for men who hike, grow a beard that suggests wisdom. But life is more like a long American highway with a lot of billboards trying to sell you versions of yourself. For a while, I did small things that felt like right-sized revenge. I quit the HOA. I replaced the mailbox with a color inside the approved palette, but on the edge, just enough to communicate I was alive. I deleted Weston's emails without reading them, which is a spiritual discipline if you commit. I went to therapy and sat on a couch that had seen some things, and a woman with a calm voice told me betrayal is not a verdict on my worth. It's a weather report on someone else's storm. I believed her slowly. I cooked. I ate breakfast at a diner where the waitress calls everyone "hun" and tops off your mug as if grief could be managed by refills. I let my friends drag me to a minor league baseball game where the hot dogs taste like childhood and the seventh-inning stretch feels like a prayer. My cheating wife, now legally no longer my wife, tried a few finales. She brought over a box of old photos. She wrote a long letter about timelines and mistakes and epiphanies and how our love story doesn't have to end ugly, which is the kind of sentence that sounds like care but is actually control wearing perfume. She asked if we could redefine family, and I said we could, by telling the truth about what families are made of. They are made of trust. They are made of people who don't ask you to erase yourself for their comfort and call it growth. If she wanted a partner in co-parenting a child that was not mine, Weston seemed available and enthusiastic. "You've changed," she said, like it was an insult. It was a compliment. I had stopped managing her crisis with my soul. And yes, there were lonely nights. There were evenings where the house creaked, and every creak asked if I had made a colossal mistake. There were days I saw a dad pushing a stroller down Main Street and felt something ache, like a pulled muscle. You forget until you move wrong, but aches are not commands. They are sensations. They pass. Meanwhile, new things arrived. A buddy got me into pickleball, and I discovered that nothing cures existential dread like whacking a plastic ball across a net and arguing about kitchen faults with a retired dentist named Carl. I volunteered to coach a Little League team because you can love kids without lying to the state about their paternity, and watching a shy kid connect bat to ball for the first time is as holy as anything I've known. I took a road trip. Just me, the truck, a cooler, a playlist that veered from Springsteen to Lizzo to old country, and I stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon and thought, well, there it is, proof that erosion is patient and becomes beauty. Every so often, the town tried to drag me back into its favorite sport, narrative wrestling. Someone would corner me at Trader Joe's and say, "I just think if you really loved her." And I would nod and reply, "I do love love. That's why I told the truth." Betrayal taught me American politeness can be a costume people wear while they do violence to reality. I stopped mistaking nice for good, and I stopped auditioning for roles in a story that needed me to be a prop. I chose the smaller, steadier plot. Wake up, make the coffee, call my parents, show up for people who show up for me, say yes to the cookout, say no to the invitation that smells like drama, tip big, forgive slow, laugh often, let the dog in the bed, keep the thermostat at a temperature that offends no one but the utility company. People ask if I ever think of the baby. Of course I do. I hope he sleeps through the night soon. I hope he laughs at bubbles and claps at dogs and grows up with someone who reads to him even when they're tired. I hope the adults around him learn how to tell the truth, because kids raised in honest air learn to breathe correctly. If he asks about me someday, I hope someone says he chose honesty even when it hurt. That would be enough, maybe more than enough. As for Weston, the human monogram, his star dimmed the way shiny things do when the light moves. Turns out charisma is a rental. When you stop paying with other people's dignity, the lease is up. He still drives the Tesla, still pitch talks during barbecues, still CC's everyone like community is a mailing list. But he doesn't drive down my street much. Perhaps because the mailbox color annoys him. Perhaps because my porch light is a quiet line in the sand. Perhaps because we both understand revenge arrived not with a bat, but with a boundary. If I'm honest, and apparently that's my brand now, the betrayal gave me something I never would have chosen, a life that fits. It's not a Hollywood third act. It's Tuesday with leftovers. It's knowing exactly what cheating costs and exactly how much truth pays. It's sitting on my porch in the evening while the cicadas sing and a neighbor kid pedals by on a bike with streamers, and I raise a hand and he lifts his chin, and the world feels less like a conspiracy and more like a street where people can be decent. It's realizing that toxic love is just love that demands your self-respect as a tithe, and you're allowed to close your wallet. It's learning that family is less about blood than about promises kept, and the promise I kept finally was to myself. So no, I didn't sign. The paper sits in a file somewhere, unmarked by my name, and I sleep. Sleep is an underrated miracle. I wake up and the house is quiet, and the dog thumps his tail, and the coffee tastes like possibility. And the first text on my phone is a meme from a friend who knows grief can be dry-aged into humor if you let it. I think about what the county clerk said, not signing doesn't erase the situation. And I smile, because she was right. It didn't erase anything. It revealed everything. It showed me the shape of my spine. It taught me that revenge can be as gentle as living well, that betrayal can be a teacher if you don't let it be your jailer, and that a cheating wife can break your heart without breaking your future. And when the town quiets and the porch light hums and the night settles like a soft, honest blanket, I hear my own voice in the stillness, steady now, unshaking at last. I refuse to sign, and in that refusal, I finally signed up for my life.